Yeah. So good morning. We are here with Julie and Vickie. Julie is a teacher librarian, and Vickie is a parent and a school board member. And I have asked them how Vickie got here and how they know each other, and to talk a little bit about why they might take the time out to come to this discussion today.
How we know each other. In my library, on every Thursday, I have a group of parents that come in and they do the work for teachers that are sent down. Vickie is also our school board chairman, but she was also a very active parent, and so our relationship came from that time on Thursday mornings together. Even before you were at school board, right?
No, I think I was still on the school board. Yeah, I started on the school board. I've been on for a while.
So we've had a long relationship that way.
So, and I think libraries are important to me. I grew up with in a small town with a really small public library, and I would just like hang out there in the summer times with the librarian and help her shelf books, and I worked in the school library, so I do like I have a soft spot for libraries. And we have had a situation in our district a couple years ago, where we had to do some budget cutting, and the librarian was libraries were on the list, and Julie and all the other folks at the middle school really advocated for the position. And the library is very important, I think, to all of us on the school board. And although we did reduce the library position, it's still and Julie is a librarian, certified librarian, and so we felt it was important to keep that at least. So we were at least able to keep that for half time, and so that's been good.
And I took seriously the library standards for being a teaching librarian, and I had taught with my staff before and had taught a lot of different things, and so they had always allowed me to be a part of their planning, be part of their teaching, not just holding library classes, but actually content teaching classes with them.
Right, and because I was at the library, like physically in the library once a week doing this volunteer work, although we weren't doing library work, we just sat in the library, and
that was the space, that was the place
it was
that
the
you
space
got. Okay.
that we used, but there were actually times when like the classes would come in and Julie would be teaching classes, and again they weren't necessarily classes about library skills, which are important too, I think, and I know Julie taught that, but were actually content classes that she was teaching, where she was working like with the social studies teacher or the English teacher or the science teacher, and she was actually part of that teaching unit. And so by actually being sitting in the library with another group, with a group of parents while that was going on, actually saw what was happening. It wasn't just something I would hear about at a school board meeting and go, oh, well, that's cool that she does that. It's like actually having seen it and tried to be quiet while it was going on.
Does she have a quiet library?
Not when the parents were there.
That's right. Yes.
She would have to tell us to be quiet sometimes.
That's terrific.
But it was, so at any rate, that was kind
of. And we
of
have really high reading scores, and I think a lot of that's due to just the access and that interrelatedness that we have with the classrooms, and listening to teachers, listening to kids.
So one kind of a last question. Susan and I and Danette have this kind of guiding question, which is to put aside the vision that we've always held of what a school library looks like and what it does, and we've asked ourselves, what would a school library look like if it were invented today, with the tools that we have today, with the world that we're living in, etc. And how would you respond to that? What do you think how is the library different today? How should it be different than it has been in our recent history?
It's kind of a hard question for me because it's so ingrained in my mind what a library was like when I was a kid, and I loved that whole, like, it was quiet, and you know, you had to punch the date thick cards. Would love to do that. So, like, in my mind, and I love to read books to this day. And so, but I think it is important to, there's so much literacy and everything on the internet now, and a whole research that you do is not now for kids. It's not going to an encyclopedia and looking something up or going through old magazine articles like we had to do. I mean, the kids need to be able to have access to that information, and even though we might not like it, or we might say that's not how we did it, and all that, it really needs to be. And I mean, things are changing so fast. I mean, I know now, like with the books, electronic books, and I mean, it's a whole different world. And even though we didn't grow up in that, and it's probably not how you know.
Well, Julie, before you answer, I know, Vickie, that you have some male energy in your house.
Right.
When you think about your boys and the life what they need to be prepared.
Right.
How does that fit in?
I think one thing is they need to be able to. I mean, it's great to have the resource of going on the internet to getting information, but they need to learn how to sift through that information and get what is, what is good information, and not just automatically take what there is. I mean, in our day it was a little bit easier. If it was in an encyclopedia, pretty much, it might be outdated, which was a factor that we had to deal with, but it was good. It was good information. It was much easier for librarians and teachers to sift through and provide that information. And so now, not just the students, but teachers and librarians need to know how to get through that information, and how do you pick out what's the best thing.
And we haven't necessarily made that jump for that informational literacy. You know, when they go on to search, they just have a general idea of how to search. It's not refined. It's not how to refine a search, and I think that has to be a part of it. But I remember one question I had when I was going back to get my library certification and credentials, back when I tried with the University of Idaho on a correspondence. And one of my responses was that, just like gyms are opened up to the public, one of my responses was that school libraries should have extended hours in a community, and with access to not just the students of the community, but to the community itself.
That's great,
And that one of our computer labs should be open, my library should be open, and it should be a place where people come to meet, to have time, because a lot of people don't have that ability during the school day, or even a work day. And so that was a thought I had, that it really should be part of the community itself and the neighborhood.
I love that you said that, because one of the things when we dubbed the afternoon part of what we're going to do is actually designing a blueprint where you've just named something that you want to do. And so it'll be interesting to see at the end of the day, are you able to create a plan to maybe make that happen? I saw Vickie's eyes lit up like, that's a good idea. With dropout rates the way they are, and the issue of where do kids go after school and all that, I mean, it's a great time.
And I guess this is kind of on the school board side of me, that I feel like the more we can get people into our schools, the more likely they are to support it. And
Absolutely.
I think athletics and those sorts of activities help with that a lot. But anytime we can get people into the schools, maybe who aren't parents, or maybe their parents, they might not necessarily support the schools, and
that's
even thinking just from the dollar and from the dollar and the budget side of it, is that if you can get them in, and we're always every couple of years we have to try to pass those supplemental levies.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, just if people are more involved and they see that there's something
they
that
see the
they
value,
are getting out
the
of
investment
it,
is sound.
They might be more likely to support.
You are thinking like a school board member, girl.
And when we have open house, parents would really like to sit down and spend more time in that library. I mean, they really truly would, and have a little more.
One of the things we're also going to be talking about in that design is that idea of the children's portfolio. I know as a parent, sometimes I feel quite distanced from what's actually happening with my children. Imagine if there was a way to link what they're doing, so that the folks can
And accessible.
understand. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, you were
We'll do a TBA here, to be continued. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming.
Oh,
Thank you.
glad to be here.